Well, this is exciting for everybody. I am taking you to Brisbane for a conversation with author David Thomas Kay. The book, The Sword of St. ISIDORES. And this is, of course, Circles of Time, book one, because, oh, you bet there's more. He's not the only one who's involved. It's kind of a little family affair. I love this. His daughter Tracy was the illustrator, and his son, talented in her own right and in other ways. And his son as well, too, an editor for him. I love that when everybody gets on board, and that's Dr. Martin John Kay. So here on Author's Corner, David, thanks so much for hanging with us on America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney. I can't wait to talk about your inspirations. I know we talked off the air, and you are an interesting man. Bands, sports, ships, you have stories that you and I could talk about for hours and hours. But let's talk about your book. What led you to write your book? How did this all come about?
My book is it came about that this particular book, The Sword of St. ISIDORES, was never going to be written because I was a genealogist moving away, took a writing course, and I started writing book two as book one because that's as far back as my research went, and I was involved with Charles II and Quakerism and things like that, which my family were a part of. And then I discovered our DNA from research around the Lake District, and I discovered my mother's side had DNA from South Norway, and that was a clincher. I was sure now that we were descendants of those original lakeside developers. And so I started more research, going further back. I left 1660. I went further back and I studied the Vikings, the Norse people, and their history, the gods. I was studying Norse gods, something completely out of the blue, and threw me off course completely. I said I wanted to write then. I was finishing my writing course. I said I would like now to write a Viking book. Never had any intention, but with this connection, family connection, it had to happen. And I decided, I was thinking about it all, and I decided I'd like all the chapters to be like episodes of a serial on TV, where it drags you in, and often you have to wait a week to see what happened next. With my books, you don't have to wait a couple of chapters before you pan on, because there's another family, diverse family in that second chapter, doing other things, linking up. So that was where I wanted to style it on. And but then I turned around and that's my framework. And I thought, well, I haven't got a story. You've got to have a story to write a novel. So I went back to read the Chronicles of the Kings of Norway by Snorri Sturluson. He's the Icelandic poet. And straight away, the story was hitting me between the eyes. King Athelstan was gifting a magnificent jewelled sword to King Harald, the King of Norway. He was a heathen, a pagan, and Athelstan was a pure Christian, so there had to be a catch. And the sword itself had a loaded insult in it. And as the ambassador, he kneeled down in front of Harald with outstretched hands with this magnificent sword, and Harald took it up, examined it, and says, "Yes, I accept this gift." And the ambassador says, "Now you've accepted this gift, you're beholden to my king Athelstan." And Harald rose to his full eyes, red-faced, and lifted his sword in anger. The ambassador was already in the beheading position, but he refrained. He was 70 years old, king of all Norway, and had learned to contain his anger. So he dispatched them back and thought deeply on this insult. It was just pure insult. So he called his great warrior, Hauk the Red, and he sent him with 3 ships to Westminster and Athelstan. One of those ships was a gift. Beautiful purple sails, shields, gilt-edged seals on the rowlocks, and on the prow, a golden figurine. And Athelstan was overcome with it. And Hauk, his warrior, said, we have a greater gift for you. We'd like to deliver you tomorrow. And so he's invited to the banqueting hall the next day. But Hauk came with all his warriors, and they stood at the gates, and all the walls were lined with guards. And Athelstan felt suspicious, but he warned them, keep steady. He said, let them through. He came through, and he was sat in his long chair, a long high chair, at a long. He was at the centre of a long table, banqueting table, being entertained by minstrels. That's it. And Hauk's men lined and facing him, lined the table, equidistant facing him, and Hauk bent down and picked up this young child and put it on Athelstan's knee. And the king went for his sword and said, what's the meaning of this? And Hauk said, my king wishes you to foster this bastard child of his kitchen maid. And the whole went silent. There was no bigger insult. It was payback time from Harald. They were playing games, like big games. And Hauk turned away to leave the hall, and Athelstan looked at this child, highly intelligent, beautiful child. He looked at him and waved his guards to let them through. This child was called Harald, and he had no sons. He'd vowed never to have an heir to the throne and was unmarried. That was his deal. So he ran a school for young princes of Europe, and he taught them the skills of warfare and weaponry. And this young boy was destined to go there. He baptized him, brought him a true Christian, and by the time he was 15, he'd grown strong and tall, and in the image of his deceased father, King Harald, he died. And Athelstan gave him a sword called Quernbite that could cut through this millstone. And he fitted out 3 warships with warriors. The young Hauk, 15-year-old, sailed to Norway to claim the throne from Eric Bloodaxe. And that's where my story begins.
Wow. Wow. And we won't tell everybody too much because we want them to be surprised by the things that happen in this. But you're so descriptive in your writing. You pull us right in there. Would you describe this as historical fiction and fantasy? Because that's what it feels like.
Yes, it's historical fiction, fantasy. Because,
yeah.
The sword is a fantasy. It's cursed. It is cursed. And it's always, overall, it's the main character, really. The sword, its presence is always felt throughout the book, because they're highly superstitious people as well, so that made it worse.
Exactly, but I like as you say, this is something you don't have to wait for. You don't have to wait a week. You'll keep getting pulled into the story, into David's story. When people read this book and then ultimately go through all of the circles of time, what do you hope they take away?
I hope they take away a lot of history, because there's the Viking era, there's the King Charles II restoration period. That's very interesting, and the fire of London is there, and the plague. It's all in there, and the introduction of racehorses into Newmarket. which King Charles II gave. I was fascinated with his history myself. So that's it. And then I move across now because it's progressive historical fiction. So then I move forward to the Victorian age, and we learn all about Victoria and Albert and the Crystal Palace and the East India Company, which is the same period. So all that's good history, which you can gently tell people with a good story woven around it all. You know? That's my idea.
Right, which is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Again, the book is called The Sword of St. Isidores, Circles of Time, Book 1. And, you know, you can get this on Amazon for a song, you know, you can get it for a song and you can start reading it right now, Kindle, paperback, and of course, you can get it at Barnes & Noble and so many other great places. I think you're having fun doing this. Are you having fun doing this?
I'm having fun. Yes, it's quite exciting when you develop a new character and he leads you into a new plot, and then another character, and of course you also have to have an antagonist. And in the Sword of St. Isidores, he takes up as many pages as, say, Swords of Fortune. And this is Alfonso the monk, who he's very prominent throughout. But he's disliked. He can't keep his hands off women. He has a thing like that going on. But I try and create sympathy for him.
David, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Right.
Visit www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com. Call us at 877-600-5469. Subscribe now.